Welcome to the Go Big Redcast, the Husker Fan Sports Show.
Welcome to the Go Big Redcast, for a very special edition. I'm your host, David Gaspers, and I'm with Honky.
We hired my doppelganger, the twin. I am not Matt Rhule, but I cannot wait to see Coach Rhule get here to Lincoln and go Big Red.
I don't know, Honk. I just saw Matt Rhule on game day, and I think you're one and the same. I'm telling you.
Well, yeah.
Where are you at right now?
I'm actually in my sister and brother-in-law's basement Husker bathroom, and I'm not kidding. They have a huge Husker bathroom, and we've got Memorial Stadium behind me. So this is
well, that's the commitment the Redcast has to talking about this. I'm going to welcome Boomer to the morning show.
Well, just glad to be on here. Look forward to my breakdown of traffic on the 15s. Looking outside of Kinnick Stadium, it's a cluster, and they all still suck. So there we go.
And also the Redcast, Rob.
Oh, man, this is great. I'm actually thinking about a new summer segment. You know, I do the lunch cast, but I'm actually thinking like coffee with Rob would be like a really good option for the Redcast as well.
Kind of a breakfast thing going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I never eat lunch on the Redcast, but I will definitely grab a bagel and lox.
You could spin some mellow sounds, you know. Yeah, absolutely.
I won't do it from Honky's house, though, because they don't have dairy there, so I can't put any creamer in my coffee. That's true.
Well, it is a very special morning edition of the Redcast, and we woke up this morning happy from a victory over Iowa. We'll talk a little bit about that because we got to celebrate that, right, guys? Mm-hmm. But the national guys were out early. Pete Thamel and others were following up on reports yesterday that launched right before the Iowa game. I think Chris Lowe at ESPN was the first, but then a few others, that the hire of Matt Rhule was imminent. And sure enough, not only was the kind of the national media saying that it was going to happen, we have a official press release, and it is stamped and sealed and delivered, Honky. So your reactions to Matt Rhule as the new head coach at Nebraska?
Yeah, I'm still trying to get the sleep out of my eyes. I woke up, it's 10:25 right now. I woke up about 9:20. We got to sleep in a little bit. And I wake up to about 80 text messages. And it was actually Mac. Some of the text messages from Mac, I thought he sent one right before we went to bed last night. So I thought it was like a continuation of some of the Nebraska-Iowa talk. And he said something like, "I'm glad it's over." And I'm like, what's that? And I mean, all of a sudden you start going through it and it's like, oh, they've made the announcement. So I got to watch just a little portion on social media, a little portion of what he did on game day this morning. And Dave, you were talking more about that before we went on. So I'm as interested as anything to hear that, but not surprised that he's the hire at all. We might even get to this. We actually did a welcome video for him about a couple of weeks ago. There was thought that he might be announced at that time. So, but we couldn't say anything then. So this is fun. I'm happy with the outcome of this.
Yeah, absolutely. Boomer, I think you had a chance to listen to the interview on game day. He spoke to Reese Davis and Kirk Herbstreit. And, he started off saying that Nebraska was a program he not just only followed as a kid, growing up in college at Penn State. But revered the Nebraska program, has a lot of, understanding of the position of the Nebraska program in the college football landscape, and talked a lot about, developing young men, and said a lot of the right things you wanted to hear from a new coach. Also, acknowledged the alignment of the Nebraska leadership from Ted Carter and Trev Alberts. What did you think?
Yeah, he did a really good interview. If people haven't had a chance to see it, go back and catch it. I'm sure it'll be on YouTube here shortly if it isn't already, or at least get a transcript of it. But no, he showed that he's good with the media, especially in kind of a quick off the cuff interview like that. Check the right boxes. Comments about the fan base, comments about he's already spoken with Tom Osborne. He knows the field, he knows the fans. He talked about the importance of getting players and developing them and getting them to the next level, the NFL. I mean, that's something that we've kind of lacked, I think, just as a
and excelling at the next
program for a
level.
long
He
time.
really
Yeah,
emphasized
exactly.
that.
Yeah, excel at the next level, no less. So, if anything, they always say they don't want to win the press conference, but that was a nice press conference, a nice little interview he had. So, I think it shows that he at least does some homework and knows what he's talking about and knows kind of what he wants to do already here as a coach.
Yep. Rob, obviously we've had some time here over the last 5 days or so where it seemed like the Rhule hire seemed to be more and more likely to consume a lot of information on that Rhule. Honky sent out a lot of links of interviews we've heard and articles written about him. What do you think of this hire?
I like it, especially what he did at Temple, what he did at Baylor, as far as kind of resurrecting a couple programs. I mean, Baylor, if I'm correct, right, they were basically in the death penalty at the time, and he was still bringing talent into that school, and
he took over a tough situation,
and he really did,
much tougher.
I mean, and a much tougher situation, and he's still coming into a tough situation. But I find it interesting that they announced, or it kind of leaked, that he was going to be signing a contract before the Iowa game, because some of those kids are on social media, like sitting on their phones in their lockers before the game, getting ready for the game, and they're going to see that kind of stuff. And I wonder how much it impacted just the emotional state of the team, knowing a lot of these guys that are coming back next year, knowing who they're going to be playing for and going out there. And I mean, and I don't know, I'm speculating, but how much of an audition, quote unquote, a lot of these like younger players were making, knowing that their new coach was probably watching the game. And I'm excited for it. I think it's great. I mean, like I said, I think I said on the show this week, I think we're going to probably get a final announcement on Saturday. And I think, a lot of people were feeling that, and I'm glad that they did it. I mean, Dave, you were a journalism guy at Nebraska, and this is like right by the playbook. They released it all for the morning shows. Like, I mean, this is
like precision. Yeah.
This is like, I'm telling you, this is like perfect. It just feels right. Everything about it just feels right.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, to your point, Rob, you're exactly right. I mean, Honky, I mean, like, I think Trev did a great job here. I mean, I will be critical when I need to be critical. I will also lend praise when deserved, and to keep this search as locked up as he did, and then be able to orchestrate this timing where I think it was intentional that the official leaks really happened yesterday, so that buzz could happen during the game, and then the actual timing of this morning it was right out of a media playbook, right? I mean, he did it perfect. Mm-hmm. So Honk, I mean, you got to be happy with how Trev did this.
Yeah, this is a pretty awesome weekend overall. But yeah, for all the trust in Trev people, and we've hesitated on some of that, Dave. You and I have talked about that where we as Husker fans, we've done that a lot in the past. Hey, the Frost effect, trust in this guy, trust in that guy. And at some point you need the results too. The results of what Trev did here end up being at times it's painful because it was 70 plus days, but it was a 70 plus day coaching search that was done the way he said from day one it was going to be done. People didn't know a lot of information throughout, and that's good. That's how you want to run one of these. And then the end result was, in a timely manner, he announced one of a number of candidates I think we all thought could have been very good quality candidates. It didn't have to just be Coach Rhule. There were other guys that could have been hired today that I think we would have thought very similar of, but he got one of them. In fact, he got one that was very high on a lot of our lists. So we got him in a timely manner. And then from the media side of it, to be able to announce it this morning so that it gets into the ESPN Game Day segments, which is awesome. So now we're getting national talk today, a day after we beat Iowa on Black Friday. Yep. How awesome is that for Husker fans? I mean, if we need some good
the first big hire of the year.
First big hire of the year. Get it out there. Well done, Trev. Well done. Everything involved with this. This is a good weekend for Husker Nation. At a time that we really need it. It starts off the offseason in a great way, and it starts it off early. Now we have our coach a couple of weeks before all the transfer portal stuff, signing stuff, and the big remaining question is the guy that was coaching for us yesterday, and what happens moving forward there. And I'm sure we'll find that stuff out here in the next couple of days.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Boomer, I just brought up our graphic from our coaching draft, which we had a lot of fun with.
Dave
and to Honky's point. We
Look
had
at that.
a
The Redcast was accurate, Dave.
I feel like that was
Yes.
edited last minute. Dave, is that what you were working on before the show? Is that you were editing
Nope,
that, moving
nope.
them around?
I had Matt Rhule up there, but we also have Mickey Joseph up here and a lot of other quality candidates. And you know, I mean, to Hockey's point, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, Trev has orchestrated this perfectly, but you know, the grade on the actual hire we'll know in 3 or 4 years, right?
Yep.
A lot of good names on that list. There's a great kind of coaching pool this year, and I think we got one of the absolute best hires. But we'll see how that plays out. With all those resumes, though, that I showed on this list, everyone we could have hired, everyone had some pros and some cons, right? I mean, nothing was going to be an absolute home run hire. The biggest critique on Matt Rhule from a college coaching standpoint is he didn't beat a lot of top 25 teams, even though I don't think he had that many opportunities at Temple. And his best year at Baylor, he lost to Oklahoma twice, one in overtime in the Big 12 championship game, and to Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. What do you think about the folks who are trying to find holes in Matt Rhule's resume?
Well, there were going to be holes in any of the resumes, right? And we said that all throughout the process. Again, speaking of that process, when do you think that he was hired here? My guess is probably middle of the week. Things were well known, right? And that's about the same time that some of those guys on that same list, Dave, were starting to get their extensions. And we talked about that on this week's show when Husker fans were starting to say, "Oh gosh, we're giving raises to Kiffin and Leipold and all that." No, maybe we had our stuff in order and we got our guy, and it you know, within the back channels, people know what's going on. The agents know what's going on. And I think that again, this shows what Trev was able to do to get our guy in that manner. But again, excited. I'm excited with what he brings from a background standpoint, from a physicality, Big Ten background standpoint is intriguing to me. Really, honestly, the most important thing now to me is it's that coaching staff, whoever he's going to bring in around him. That's what's really going to be a telling point there. And we've got some very good guys that are on this staff that can stay, I think. And he's also got some guys that have been with him, I'm sure, at different stops along the way too.
Yeah. You know, Boomer, I mean, we've criticized our past coaching hires when they brought their entire coaching staff, and that's happened really the last 2 times. And then even with Bo Pelini, he didn't really actually bring an all-star staff. It seems like maybe one of the sticking points of the contract that kind of had to get worked out with Matt Rhule was how big of a salary pool was going to be available for his coaching staff. I think Honky's right. I mean, I think there's a good chance there's a couple of our existing coaches that get retained, but he also has connections, not just to like one coaching staff, but he's had multiple coaches at different levels and some that are also ace recruiters.
Yeah, and there's something to be said for that. We're not hiring a guy who's currently coaching, so he doesn't have a staff that he's just going to drag with him. So he, unless they're all hanging around his basement, I don't know. So, but so that's a plus, and that probably does lend some support to the idea that he might keep some of the current staff around just to help with that continuity, so he doesn't have to start completely from scratch and hire everybody, an entire staff. It might just make sense that first year to keep some people that are here already, just to smooth that process over, make it easier, eliminate a few variables that way. So, but yeah, he does have a very long, record with various assistants and has a lot of connections in the coaching world. So, whether it's at Baylor with Aranda and everyone that's there, to all of his time at Temple and various guys at Carolina. There's lots of options for him to go to there. And then, one other thing I've heard, criticisms of Matt Rhule is, a lot of people online, I've seen him playing, like he's, Riley 2.0, he's a 500 coach, like record wise. People need to kind of comprehend statistics. It can mean a few different things, maybe he's 500 at Baylor, but you got to look at trend lines. It makes a big difference when you start at 1 in something and end at 11 in something. It's like, if me and Jeff Bezos get in an elevator, mathematically averaged, we're all billionaires. But you got to look a little deeper into the statistics, people, before you just jump to those conclusions.
But that's exactly right.
I think Dave made the right point though too, and we've said this before, and not to repeat the mistakes of the past, is that on Sunday or Monday, whenever they said they're going to do the actual press conference, when Frost did his press conference back in 2017, we won the national championship. We're national championship winners. I mean, we won the coaching hire. And I think we got a really good hire here, and yet we're not going to win anything on Sunday or Monday. The true judgment of the success of this hire is going to be in a couple of years, 2, 3, 4 years, whatever it is. Hopefully, I think a true judgment of success is, does our coach actually live out the contract that he has here, meaning he made it. Frost got a 7-year contract and only made it 4 years and 3 games. Okay, that's not a successful coach. Let's have a coach that lives out the length of his contract, or maybe gets contracts extended after we won titles and championships. That's where, we're really going to know whether or not he's a success. But that doesn't diminish the fact that I'm ecstatic with who we got. It definitely didn't feel like this was a panic hire. We got somebody after we lost a bunch of guys. I mean, this was somebody that was high on the list. And as I mentioned earlier, it was a couple Thursdays ago is when the big news media day broke of like, there might be an announcement. And we were asked to do an introductory victory or video for Matt Rhule, which is actually out there at some point. I wonder if they're going to be releasing that heard at there. But it was something that we did back then. So, I mean, this was something that we thought there was a very good chance a couple of weeks ago they were going to make this announcement. And then it kind of got pulled back a little bit, for all the obvious reasons. Season's done now. Now you can go forward, and we know who it is.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. I mean, this has definitely been bubbling up for a while. I think, Rhule was probably very high on Trev's list. I don't think we got the third, fourth, or fifth choice here. I think this is likely the first choice or right there. And, there's the doppelganger effect there. There's the Honky and Matt Rhule comparison. It's uncanny, I'll be honest with you. And I fully expect when we do the show on Monday that we'll have Coach Rhule on, because Honky will be in a suit and tie, just stumbling into the studio from the press conference and exhausted from all the questions, but he'll be ready to go, right, Honk?
I need to get like a Carolina Panthers hat or something so they can like come in with the tie on and with the hat, go, oh shoot,
I'm sure we're gonna get. I mean, his coaching attire has this weird this sleeveless hoodie thing of some sort. Well, yeah, that's a good one, but
yeah.
It's a smock, yeah. So, Honky, I fully expect you to get the smock as soon as it's available at Alumni Hall or wherever else you can buy your stuff, right?
Yeah, get this. I want to show this little graphic, because graphic designer Swobes is amazing. So he already created our intro graphic, but I don't know.
Well, he just took your picture and put it up there, right?
Yeah, well, that too. But here we have the new. I mean, look at this little thing here that the Swobes put together. So this is
awesome.
Isn't that awesome? There, I'm sure we'll have other chances to use some of those things that he's creating. But I wanted to make sure
we even mocked the colors up. Is that right?
Yeah.
Let's see that again. Yeah. He took the Carolina blue and turned it into a red. Very nice. Well, Honk, let's. We're having fun here. Let's talk a little bit X's and O's with Matt Rhule, and then maybe we'll talk a little bit about that Iowa win, right?
Mm-hmm.
Matt Rhule, I think there's a lot out there you can listen to. He's media friendly, so he is not one to not give a lot of good quotes about his philosophy, about building a team and what he believes in. And he believes in establishing the line of scrimmage, both sides of the ball. There's a really good article about how when he went to Baylor, he, had to kind of, adapt to the RPO offenses, but he still made it kind of his own. What do you think you're going to see next year, X's and O's wise, from this team?
I think personnel wise is what I'm interested in, is that I think we're going to do, some shotgun spread stuff. There might be some under center too, but shotgun spread, but I think you're going to see heavier sets, some double tight ends. He has a strong power running background that he kind of had to marry when he got to Baylor. He kind of had to marry it with what works down there in Texas, and the Texas high schools where a lot of spread offenses have come from. He had to kind of plug his nose a little bit and say, okay, I think I need to run some of this style of offense with the power Big Ten background that I have and make it work. And essentially, I mean, they've been able to do that. Now, I've looked at some of their run pass ratios over the years, some of his season averages, and they've been close to 50-50 run pass. So it'll be interesting here to see what he does with that. I'm anticipating, I'm hoping he wants to keep mobility with the quarterback spot. That's going to be, I think, important there. And again, some of this is having that staff, a couple of the guys, Mickey, we keep Mickey around and get some of his influence on what he has seen work and not work. Mickey was saying that last week in his press conference about the importance of having some Big Ten background here with the staff. And that's the thing. Ultimately, it's always going to come down to me. The type of quarterback you have drives what you do. If we've got a stick in the mud pocket guy, you're limited with what you're going to do with it. If you got a guy who can move around, it opens up everything from option to just more rollouts and everything that comes along with that too. But at the end of the day, the things that Trev wanted when Trev fired Frost and said, I want someone that's going to win the lines of scrimmage and I want a grinder and all that. I mean, to apply that to Rhule right now, the lines of scrimmage, Rhule, is, I've seen enough literature on things he said about that.
Mm-hmm.
The lines of scrimmage are going to be, a major focus piece. And I guess the grinding part I'm interested in. I want to learn a little bit more about him, like just from, is this his only hobby? Is he a good golfer? What's his handicap? I mean, because this should be, this is your job for the next 8 years or whatever. This is all you're going to be doing is Husker football.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I saw, a great quote from someone that, like with the Texas high school coaches, like you did a poll of Texas high school coaches, they would all just say Matt Rhule's their favorite coach. Mm-hmm. So I think he loves talking about football and talking coaching to other coaches. The coaching clinic could be a great one for years to come here. Boomer, I am going to look back a little bit, and then I'm going to spit this forward. So it's a two-part question. I'll throw the first one to Boomer and then open up the second one to everyone else. With Scott Frost, when do you think he, and maybe he never did, I don't know, but when do you think he finally realized that he was a little bit over his head with this? Like it wasn't going the way he thought it was going to go. Was it early or was it at the very end?
Oh boy, that's a good question. I would probably say, I think that first time we played Michigan, he realized this is going to be a hell of a lot harder than he thought it might have been when they just got completely steamrolled by the Wolverines in Ann Arbor. Now, that was the first year, and you could kind of have expected that. And then I think, oh boy, when did he finally know it was pretty well set and done? Man, that's a tough call. I think possibly maybe the COVID season finally did that in, losing to Illinois, coming off that Penn State win and just having no answers.
That's a good point. The Illinois game that,
and maybe even that Minnesota game that year too, when you come in with a completely depleted Minnesota team and still lose. I think it kind of knew maybe it was done at that point, or this was.
I asked the question.
That's tough. Yeah.
I asked the question. My wife Katie came up with that yesterday while we were watching the football game, and I'm like, that's a really good question because it's a hard one to answer. It's different than when does a fan think, oh, this isn't going to work out? It's like, when did the coach, not know it was going to work out? Honky?
Well, Dave, you and I in year 2 of Riley as a top 10 team, we went down to Columbus, Ohio and watched us lose 62-3. And in my opinion, that was, just a season and a half in, about, 20 games into the Riley era. And I'm like, if this is how uncompetitive we are in year 2, and you've really had a chance to kind of go through a recruiting cycle and you've played these teams now multiple times, if that's how uncompetitive we are, that's a problem. Well, in Frost's case, in year 2, the year of hype, 2019, when we hosted ESPN Game Day and had Ohio State come here, and it was a great Ohio State team. But I mean, they just had their way with us, minus one drive where we got in the I formation and ran option football down the field on them. But minus that, we were not competitive, and that's a concern. But not to rewrite history, we flip it around. We become very competitive over the next 2 years, constantly losing by one score or less, but never being able to get over the hump.
Right.
And I wonder, even to rephrase the question a little bit, was there ever a point where Frost is like, the staff I have here, and this is how important this moment is for Rhule, getting the right staff from day one.
Yeah.
Was there a point where Frost is like, I'm not far away. I'm not overwhelmed by this, but I do need to make changes because I've got things on the staff, coaches on the staff that just are not getting it done, and I need to make this change. I don't know. After year 2, he did get rid of his offensive coordinator Walters and he got rid of Juwan DeWitt. So he was already,
That's true.
must have had some second
tweaking.
thoughts as early as that point. But Rob, you.
Yeah, I wonder too, because that question in a way is also like, what is Scott Frost's ego like, right? Like, I mean, that's kind of like and I'm going to say he realized he was in over his head when he lost to Northwestern in Ireland. Like, I think at that point, because of the hype coming in, when, this year, like, him sliding down the rail, kind of like with all the confidence in the world, like we got this and everything like that, get to Ireland, we lose 11-point lead, game's done. North Dakota, the team comes out just flat as all get up. Following week, we lose to Georgia Southern, a game that I think we were all at. I mean, I think at that point, I think Northwestern might have been the tipping point for him, where he was just like, "What have I done?"
Yeah.
It really felt that way because, like Honky said, the team had a ton of fight in them. Last year, all the way through last year, we come out, we lose 11-point lead to Northwestern, season done. I mean, that was it. Like, that's where it just felt like, okay, this is done.
So let's spin it forward, and on a more positive note is that I think that to Matt Rhule's credit, he has a Big Ten background. I think he gets how to win some games in the Big Ten, but there is going to be a transition, right? I mean, I think he won 2 games his first year at Temple, only 1 at Baylor, but that roster was completely just depleted. They lost like half of their roster in that transition off of the Brile scandal. He's not facing that, but there could be a little bit of lean times next year, But Honky, I mean, do you feel like going forward that we're going to know if this is going to work with Matt Rhule sooner than later, or is it going to take a year 2 or a year 3 where you finally start to feel like this is definitely going in the right direction?
I mean, it might take till year 2 or 3, but you'll definitely see in year 2 or 3, you should, if it's going in the right direction, you should see wins and I mean, being competitive. I don't know what divisions are going to look like. The West might not be the West by the time he gets to year 2, but what happens specifically to next season, because to your point, his first years at both Baylor and Temple in different situations than we're in right now, his first years, they were pretty sparse for the wins. That doesn't necessarily have to happen here. I'm not trying to say, hey, we're going to go 10-2 next year, but what happens in the next couple of weeks can play a big role in what happens next year. How many guys do you lose? We just saw Trey Palmer today already has announced to go into the NFL draft, and he probably should. I mean, he's he just had the season, broke the season record for receiving yards at Nebraska. Okay, so I mean, I expect to see that, but a difference for year 1 of Coach Rhule at Nebraska versus those other 2 spots is college football has changed since then. And when you bring in the transfer portal, which is an option that you have to get some immediate players in there that he didn't have before, when you have hopefully Coach Joseph around and you can maintain some guys not leaving, you also can keep that recruiting class in place. You can go out and already start getting guys, pulling in guys from the transfer portal as soon as, this next semester. Yep. I mean, all that and today's announcement, it goes back to what you said at the very beginning, Dave, with giving Trev some high grades for the job that he did here. Getting this announcement made today gets us started now. If we want to get guys here for the spring, you wanted to make that hire today. You didn't want to make it in the middle of December. You want to get stuff done now so that guys can start getting their plans together and get moving here. And I'm ecstatic to see what this roster looks like in spring.
Because they can start. Not only can they start recruiting new guys, they can also recruit the guys on the current roster that they want to keep. Right?
Yes, exactly. And that's the thing. I will say, ideally, moving forward too. I'm not making this a hard, fast rule that it can only be done this way, but for the most part, let's get our transfers in here to where they're actually going to be here for an off season, for spring. I love O'Shawn, but O'Shawn getting here after the spring. Win from Alabama. Heck, Drew, the defensive tackle that got here from Texas Tech, and he got here in August. Come on. I mean, you've got to give guys a reasonable chance to acclimate, and that's how important the next month and a half is. If a guy's going to be a major player on the team next year, he needs to be on the team by January, going through whatever this offseason is going to look like, whoever our new strength coach, because I'm guessing there's going to be a new one that comes along there, whatever that person does and staff. We need to get that stuff in order. And in order to get it in order, Trev had to do what he did today, which was get your guy hired now and start putting the pieces together.
Yeah. Rob, I mean, O'Shawn Mathis had maybe his best game yesterday. I thought he actually played really well, had an impact, especially in the second half when we knew Iowa was going to have to throw, and we were actually just blitzing guys. It was fun to see Tanner, Nelson, and O'Shawn all on the field at the same time.
Chasing that guy like down the field was the best. Like it was pretty exciting to watch the defense yesterday because forcing Iowa to throw the ball like that was fantastic. And just kind of seeing Bush every single play, you've got like 6 guys up on the line and a couple linebackers maybe dropping back into coverage, but for the most part, just bringing it. And every time there was like that stunt just coming off of the left side of our line, like you could see it every single time. It was almost like a video game where you're running the same defense on every single play because you don't know any better. It was like watching Jonah beat Honky or Mac at Madden last week. But first though, Dave, I did have a couple things that I wanted to bring up, and one, I want to thank everyone. We have 72 people, I think, watching us right now. So thanks everyone for taking
73.
73. It just went up. You know what? Maybe we're better than any of the morning shows that are on TV before college football starts. So maybe we should consider about when we record. But
who else has Coach Rhule on for an entire episode?
Well, that's true. Okay. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up too is it'll be an interesting start to the season next year, right? Like his very first game is going to be against who? PJ Fleck. The one
let's
guy
go get another trophy.
Oh God, let's go get another trophy. Like Bits of Broken Chair, Honky and I are going to be there for that game. I think producer Skip might be there for the game. I know he'll be in Minnesota.
Maybe we're all there, Rob.
Maybe we're all there. I mean, that would, and then who do they play the following week? Colorado. That's right. And who's going to be the new coach there? There's like Dion rumors for Colorado. I think Vegas Jer was talking about that this morning on Twitter or something. Who was on our show this week?
Supposedly.
Yeah, and so that would be interesting. Like his first 2 opponents are PJ Fleck and Deion Sanders. Like, I mean, it's going to be a great start to next year, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. There's going to be hype. There's going to be Kool-Aid. But my biggest thing, since we're talking X's and O's and everything, is in the offseason, one of the things that a lot of the pundits, like local pundits, were talking about was player development and noticing how a lot of our linemen were starting to look like Big Ten linemen because of the type of workouts they were going through, diets they were on, the regiments that they were being put through. And I'll be curious to kind of see, one, who some of the guys they bring in from the transfer portal and how some of the guys that are actually going to be staying and playing here next year are developing in that way, as far as like their bodies and their diets and the kind of programs that are being put into place, like what's coming out of the locker room that a lot of these people are going to be talking about.
That's
going to be a huge thing.
One area that was a major focus under the Frost regime was getting big guys. He wanted, on defense and offensive lines, 6'6" was almost kind of the minimum starting point with some of these guys, and getting all the way up into 6'8", 6'9", 6'10" dudes. And again, that was on both sides of the ball. I'm curious to see how Coach Rhule looks at that. And obviously there's plenty of good linemen out there that are 6'2", 6'3". And the one thing that we know about winning on the line of scrimmage, either side, is the low man wins.
Wins.
So that's nothing against being 6'10". Prohaska can be an outstanding lineman for us at 6'10". And he can get low and he can move guys. But it's all about being low no matter what. So I think we're probably going to see less of a reliance on having to get guys that are so dang big. But at the end of the day, it's just, are you going to be a good football player or not for us? I am curious with the coaching staff. Might as well throw it out there. He does have one current coach, or he had one current coach at Carolina, Joe Daly, who was the receivers coach, I think, for him. Just curious if that's a guy that gets mentioned, brought along. I'm sure he'll get mentioned. Sure. But former Husker, he did have a former Husker on his staff there at Carolina.
Well, what if and here's another hypothetical, since you want to go to coaching. Mickey Joseph, if he stays, right? He stays, he's like in recruiting, doing his thing, staying on for all the right reasons that we want him to be, want him to stay here. Defensive coordinator Vance? No. I mean, it's been brought up in the past, and I'm just curious,
that was, I mean, I just don't see it, but
I'll leave it up to Rhule. I don't have
I think
any idea there.
Rhule does have, his last name is Snow Boomer. Is it Jim Snow? I can't remember his name, but he's been his DC at least the 2 different stops at
And
times.
that's something I want to see then, Dave, over the next couple of days before we do our next show. I'd love to get a little bit more into X's and O's of like, what does that guy run? What have they? Are they a 4-4-3? Have they been 3-4 multiple? What have they been doing?
Yeah. Well, I don't think we're going to get a wholesale. This is Matt Rhule's staff he's always had.
Sure.
Like
Phil
what
Snow,
we heard,
by
like,
the
it was
way.
going to be the Phil Snow. There you go. Lance Leipold would have brought. But he is going to have some coaches that he has familiarity with, and I think he's shown willingness to add and subtract guys. As he goes, he had Joe Brady as an OC in Carolina and had to fire him, but maybe his schemes still work at the college level, just like Matt Rhule didn't exceed at the NFL. Maybe Joe Brady's offense is better suited for the college. I think Jake Peets is another Nebraska guy that has a connection to Matt Rhule. So there could be a lot of interesting names out there.
Oh shoot, I'm losing my thought here on it. Keep going.
Yeah. Anyway, Boomer, I mean, I think, as we see this staff get assembled, there's, it'll be interesting to see how they evaluate the existing talent on this roster.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people say this is going to take a complete rebuild, right? But yet we just went and beat Iowa, who was supposed to win the Big Ten West yesterday, with an interim coach and a bunch of players that could have quit. So, I mean, do you feel like, the Iowa game yesterday is a case in point that the cupboard isn't completely bare?
Well, yeah, I'd be hard for us to say this is a bare cupboard. I mean, there's challenges on this roster. I mean, we all know the offensive line is a challenge, and like Honky had referenced, some players are going to be leaving. Losing Palmer, I mean, that's a lot of productivity going there. And
Yep.
One of our commenters had asked, do we know what quarterbacks might be staying? Thompson. If I had to bet, probably
Thompson could come back.
Yeah, he could, but if I was laying money on it, I probably would say he wouldn't. But if he doesn't, or Smothers or Purdy, are they sticking around? Are they going to play next year? Otherwise, you're starting a brand new quarterback with very limited experience. So there's challenges, yes. But we had also referenced, the portal exists now where it didn't before.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can trust building an entire offensive line around portal players, but if you need a few key pieces, then yes, you do something like that. And
How important.
I know Joseph had commented he was working hard on, or I'd seen people saying Joseph was recruiting JUCOs hard for the offensive line, during the season. So trying to build stuff for next year. So there's going to be pieces here. Now it's just this is the staff he has put it together. Who's going to fit where? They'll have time to evaluate players, and again, that's a plus to getting them hired now rather than waiting a couple of weeks too.
We know how important Mickey will be to anybody that sticks around, probably on the current team. I mean, Mickey's kind of had such a big role with a number of the players, Casey Thompson in point. There's other coaches like Applewhite, that some of those running backs that we have, AJ Allen and Grant, having an Applewhite around could be beneficial there. But this is going to be bigger, with who he keeps and who he doesn't keep. It's going to be bigger than just keeping 1 or 2 players around, no doubt. I mean, it's a big decision, each position coach that he keeps. The thought I had earlier that left my mind when it comes to coaching staff is kind of the Kentucky model. And Kentucky is not a blue blood of football by any means, but one of the names that has come up in the last week that benefited from Nebraska was Mark Stoops. And Stoops goes out there and gets a bigger contract, right? But his coaching staff, he has 3 different $1 million coaches on his staff. Each of his position coaches, offense, defensive coordinator. I'm sorry, not position coaches. Each of his coordinators, offense and defense. But then also Vince Morrow, who Husker fans are, remember him. He was a grad assistant here in Pelini, but he's kind of their recruiting ace. And he might be the tight ends coach. I think that's what he worked with here. But it doesn't even matter what the position is. The position is completely irrelevant. It was just, we're going to pay our recruiting ace and we're going to pay our coordinators that kind of money because that's what it's going to take to compete at this SEC level down there in Kentucky. Well, I would make the argument right now that those are certainly spots that I would want to be throwing our resources at too. We need to have a dynamite coordinator on each side of the ball that is not going to get out coached by the great coaches that we play every week in the Big Ten.
Yep.
And where I've always thought with Mickey, and I've said this 1,000 times, we all have, we want to see him back next year in any capacity, whatever that was, whether he was head coach or, it doesn't matter. He's that recruiting ace. And we need to, there's a lot of momentum that we've built up off the field in this last year in the recruiting area, in the NIL area with transfer portals. There's a lot of momentum. We want to make sure we're not losing that. And then to Dave's point, just seeing what we did yesterday, we're 1 point away from beating Wisconsin a week ago. We're not taking over a team that's just devoid of talent that can't compete on the field with teams. It's just, take the best of what we got right now, build off that, and add what we're going to add with this new guy. I mean, it's exciting. I can't wait for that next game. And damn it, it's only 9 short months away, or
that's right. It is, but, that's right. So we're having fun. We're having a lot of live viewers here, so that's cool. So let's keep the conversation going a little bit more on player development and NIL. Right. I think it needs to be a little bit of everything. It has to be an end equation here. And it feels like, what I like about Matt Rhule is that he's really committed to this idea of player development. He had proven it at Temple and Baylor that he could go and get some 3-star guys that were a little bit under the radar, not completely under the radar, but turn them into 4 or 5-star guys, which that sure sounds familiar as a recipe for success in the Big Ten West for other programs. But we've always said that Nebraska has the opportunity, because of the fan base and the commitment to the program, to maybe go get some of the higher level talent guys when you need it. And for any recruiting coordinator, whether it's Mickey Joseph or someone else, to have the NIL card in the back pocket, we'll see how that plays out over the next month or so, right, Honky?
Yeah, it's one of those huge advantages. It's one people don't like to hear it that aren't Husker fans. When we say we're a blue blood and they go, oh, you haven't won any games for, or won championships for however long, that's not what being a blue blood's all about either. It's about the following. And again, this is something that Trev mentioned when he fired Frost during that press conference. We have unique advantages and disadvantages here like any other place. And one of our advantages is that amazing following, the support and the resources we get. And that's why we can win in the NIL game. We can win in the transfer portal game. And when you're talking about rebuilding a roster fairly quickly, those are 2 ways of doing it in today's world, again, that are different from what Rhule had at his fingertips when he was at Temple and Baylor. And let's even think about that for a second. Think of the excitement he has coming into a place like Nebraska. He referenced that in his one quote here this morning about, an honor it is to be at Nebraska and, coach at Memorial Stadium on Tom Osborne Field. He hasn't been at a place that has the resources and the support like this either. And so, the closest thing I can think of is at Baylor. They did just build their new stadium, a few years prior to him taking over there. So, he had some support there, but it's a whole it's an astronomically different situation for him here at Nebraska where, if he needs something, I think, that support's going to be there ready for him. So it's a good spot to be in.
Yeah. It's like with the quarterback situation. I think he has 4 or 5 guys on this roster that could run RPO and may end up being the starting quarterback next year. But I also look at an example where, Lincoln Riley goes to USC. They do a great job in the transfer portal, and they bring in Caleb Williams with them. And USC is now in the playoff hunt, and Caleb Williams is probably the front runner for the Heisman. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but if we went and landed a high-profile quarterback in the transfer market that's already proven, that wouldn't shock the heck out of me at all at this point, right?
That's a great point. Just talking expectations for next year, I'm going to be very reserved on that. I'm also it's going to be a kind of a fluid thing. Right now on day one, just knowing what we kind of currently existingly have, my expectation for next year is still get to a bowl game. That's amazing if we do that.
Yeah,
that's something we haven't done in 6 years.
Yeah.
But also to your point, if we're sitting here in 2 months and the next semester is starting up, the spring ball is starting up, and we're sitting there with some huge quarterback transfer. The top guy in the country, kind of, the Caleb Williams of this year. If that's what we've done and we've made some other clear changes, then who knows? That can change the expectations for next season too, accordingly. I've always said that expectations for the program and expectations for a team can be very different. And the expectations I have for the program have always been to be at a championship level. That's what Nebraska football is about. At a program level, the expectations is that we're going to hire the best coaches and we're going to be able to have the best facilities and the best everything. my expectations from a team standpoint can change from year to year based on what you have, and that certainly can change here in the next couple of months with whatever Coach Rhule and the staff does with the roster.
Yeah, I just turned around. Rutgers is playing Maryland, and Maryland just fumbled the ball after a great catch and run after the catch. And I had memories of yesterday's game. So that was great. But one of the things, for those of you joining us late, we already addressed the things about Rhule's overall record, taking statistics and looking at them, from a larger view, like watching the trend lines. Boomer did a great job of breaking that down. And the people that are being negative in our comments, if you want, I know you joined us late, you can go back and listen to the entire show on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe so that you know that we're when we go live and all of that. But we're not going to go back. We're not going to address any of that again. We've already discussed it earlier in the show. We do appreciate your comments and being here today, but those are things that we already talked about with overall record and just kind of coming in. Someone else made a point about like if Mickey stays, or are players going to stay loyal to him and try to undermine the program. I don't see that happening. Like that's ridiculous.
I don't think Mickey would allow that.
No,
if
that's
Mickey
ridiculous.
Stays, he's going to be 100% in.
Yeah. Somebody commented that in there, and because I'm going through and looking at it, I mean, that is absolutely the most ridiculous statement I've ever heard. I apologize to the person who wrote it. I understand there's a lot of emotion going on today, but man, that's not going to happen. Mickey's not going to stay. They're not going to try to undermine the program. Mickey is a Husker. He's only going to do what's best for the program. And if any of those players tried to do that, they wouldn't be on the team anymore.
Yeah, Mickey's a pro. Mickey.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mickey's handled everything. So if things are based off the past performance, to our point about trust in Trev, trust in Mickey, trust in somebody, I think anyone can trust in Mickey right now is that he's going to handle these situations professionally and with the absolute utmost class, because that's all he's displayed from day one since he's been here in any of the situations he's been put in. Mickey has absolutely handled it the way that he's made us Husker proud. So which I think bodes well for him in the future here too, by the way. But Mickey, yeah, I'm not concerned about any of those things. No, but. Fellas, this has been a great morning. I do. Yeah. Unfortunately, I've got to
get out of here.
We still have.
Let's get out of here with some parting shots. And if you want to add anything about how much fun it was to beat Iowa yesterday as a part of your parting shot, that would be great. Let's start with Boomer.
Well, first again, I just want to welcome Rhule to the Husker family, and I understand if people are worried about the hire, if they're calling it Riley 2.0 or that he's a bad hire or whatever. And yeah, it's understandable to have those kind of concerns. Just let it play out. We're not promising it's going to be a success. We know better than that now, but give him a chance. Get behind the team, get behind the coach, and just see what happens. And then as far as beating Iowa, I just kind of want to suggest to people that didn't think that was ever a rivalry game in the past, just kind of think of how it felt to win that game yesterday, to see the players win the game, grab that
with that trophy,
as awful as it is, and parade it around the stadium, and just how pissed off Iowa fans were yesterday online. I don't know if anyone interacted with any.
Oh yeah,
we may or may not have been trolling Iowa all day on Twitter yesterday, but yeah, that's a lot of fun, and that's what a rivalry game is. We were a 4-8 team this year, but winning that game felt like winning a bowl game or a championship. That was a lot of fun. We could do that every year. Maybe just design a better trophy. That's all we need.
That's right. That's right. Rob.
Just thanks to everyone again for coming out, watching us this morning. We do appreciate you guys being here. It is super fun to be doing shows like this. It seems like every time there's a coaching hire or a coaching fire, we get more people in here watching, and that means a lot to us. And watching that Iowa game yesterday, I guess I never really thought that I cared that much either, like as far as because I was just tired of losing, but man, it sure felt so good. And I know it sounds pretty lame because it was a 4-8 season, but that really did make pushing through this entire season worth it. Like in the very end, just watching that, doing all the shows that we did, all of just like the negative comments we're getting online, everything. And then just to come out with that win yesterday, it just feels like it sent a great message to the fan base and just set a benchmark for next year that we can all look forward to some success, hopefully, with the new coach.
Absolutely. All right, Hawk, get us out of here.
Great weekend to get that win yesterday. It's big for the program. It's big to end one of the streaks against the team that's had success against us for so long, to win a close game despite how it had to get done at the end. I mean, it was a painful second half at times to watch, but we won, and that's so important. You need wins, and this program needs wins as much as anything. I want to give congrats and a shout out to two former Huskers that are playing bigger roles for us right now. One of them is Trev Alberts. He handled this whole situation extremely well. We can now look back on it in the past because it's over. He's handled this well. There wasn't any crazy surprises. It wasn't, some Steve Peterson 40-day bunch of embarrassments. He did it well. So I can say I trust in Trev, and I can say that with some experience of him handling this situation well. And the other guy is Mickey. No matter whatever happens here, I just want to say thank you so much to him. What this season looked like when Mac and I were walking out of the Oklahoma game, and what you guys, when you were up in the press box for the Georgia Southern game, I mean, those weekends, that was a low point of where you're looking ahead and you still have 8-9 games left. And it's just, oh my gosh, what is going to happen here? And for Mickey to take over that time and really settle the things down, get the players to keep playing, to go out on the recruiting trail and just keep saying, yep, this is business as usual. We're going to keep doing what we're doing. This is one of those things I've kind of said all along. I don't think you have to tell a new coach who to keep and not keep. That's not the job of an AD or whatever. Let the coach do what he does. But I also don't think it's a hard sell to look at a couple of guys on this staff right now and say, hey, these guys have done pretty well too. And we've had enough reboots. We rebooted in 2014, started off with 100% new coaches when Riley got here, and we did the same thing with the Frost era. And I think we've all universally looked back on those times and said, let's not do that again. I think there's some good things going on within the program right now. And I think Coach Rhule coming in here, he's had some time probably to evaluate things over the last 70 days as well. It'll be interesting to see how this staff and roster starts to get formulated in the next couple of weeks. But great time to be a Husker fan. Really is. Really is. I'm excited to get into this offseason and go Big Red.
Absolutely. All right, guys, this was a lot of fun. I woke up this morning. I'm like, we're going to do a show today. I can sense it. And we knocked it out early. So now we can go watch college football, enjoy the last full Saturday, and just enjoy the victory from yesterday and the victory this morning, to be honest with you. So let's just have fun with it. That's what it's all about to be a fan. For now, let's call that a Go Big Redcast.
Go Big Red.
GBR.
A Huda Media Production.